Hi, I'm Braden Miter with the Allegheny County Park Rangers, and today we're at Settler's Cabin and we are going to go for a walk on the Waterfall Trail. In 2019, the Waterfall Trail was developed to reach a picturesque waterfall in the bottom of a nice, cool Hemlock ravine in Settler's Cabin Park. Until then, access to the waterfall was pretty limited. You had to kind of slip and slide down a really mud-slicked trail that wasn't sustainable. So what we tried to do was create a sustainable trail that everyone could access in this park. Today, the Waterfall Trail is a half a mile from the parking lot trailhead to the waterfall. The majority of the trail is about 5 feet wide. It's a machine-built natural surface trail that's nice and smooth. It does have some steep sections, but it gets you very easily to the top of the waterfall. At the very end, there are some timber stairs that lead you down to a split rail fence that you can look out through the hemlock trees over the waterfall and get a very nice view. And for the adventurous, you can continue the entire way down to the bottom and get up and close right at the foot of the waterfalls. So come on and join us. We're going to take a little bit of a hike down to the waterfall this morning. We're going to see a variety of trees as we make our way along the trail. The first one we're stopping at now is the flowering dogwood. Easily identifiable by these large white flowers. You can find these throughout all of our parks, but you also might spot this species in people's front yards. You'll see them in white, pinks, and purples, and they're a very common ornamental species, but they're also a native species that can be found from the northeastern United States all the way up in Maine down through Mexico. This species can be used for a variety of things. Traditionally, the roots have been used to make red inks and dyes, and the hard wood has been used for golf club heads, mallets, and even butcher blocks. So keep your eyes out when you're in our parks for this easily identifiable tree. So we're going to make our way down the trail and get closer to the waterfalls. Just follow me. The Waterfall Trail is a piece of the green loop in Settler's Cabin Park. So all along the way, we're going to see some different types of signage. The main thing to remember to get to the waterfall from the parking lot is to follow the signs that say Waterfall Trail, but also the green blazes or the paint marks on the trees. That'll tell you you're on the right track. You're also going to come to places where we've got some arrows where the intersections might be confusing, like where the green trail crosses the red and blue trail. So if you want a little bit of a longer adventure, you could jump on one of these trails and take an additional loop around the park and then meet back here and get back to your car. Now, all of our trails in the Allegheny County parks are generally referred to by the color of the blaze that's indicated on the trees. Some trails that have important natural resources, like the Waterfall Trail, can also be indicated by separate signage. So for the Waterfall Trail, we've included some of these nice signs here that let you know you're on the right track to see this important natural resource. So follow me and we're going to keep moving along the green trail to find our waterfall. As you explore Settler's Cabin Park, you're going to see a lot of different land features that tell us about the history of this area. Around 100 years ago, there was subsurface mining done here. So you may see pock marks on the surface that you can see where the old mine ceilings have collapsed and lets you know that there was something that was going on underground. Later, probably in the 1940s and 50s, this area was also strip mined. So when we start off hiking on the Waterfall Trail, we're at the very top of the hill. We slowly make our way down until we hit a big flat spot that was where our last stop was. And that's the strip mine bench. So they would have come in with machinery and cleared that area out looking for the coal that lied below the surface. As we get to this next spot on the trail, we start to find remnants of that mining history. We can see pieces of ground up coal that are left behind from the mining. But we also come to this very steep embankment here that we had to do a little bit of building up of the trail to get down it in a sustainable way. And that's because when they strip mined the area above this location, they poured all of the mine spoils off and kind of created a much steeper bank on the slope of the hillside here. So as we constructed this trail, we had to take a lot of things into account. The natural resources, as well as kind of these unnatural abandoned mine land features that dot the landscape in Settlers Cabin Park. In this area, we had to actually build up our trail on the downhill side to make this passable by our park visitors. So follow me and we'll head on to our next stop on the way to the waterfall. One thing you might notice about Settlers Cabin Park is that there is water everywhere. Whether it be boggy and marshy areas, the streams that run through the valley and created the waterfall, or places on the trail where it's a little muddy whenever you're crossing it. One of the big improvements we've done to the waterfall trail is go in and looked for areas in the springtime that were consistently muddy. And we created structures like the one that I'm standing on right now. We actually came in and removed all of the soil about 6 to 8 inches down from where I'm standing, filled it with small stones, and then capped it with larger flat flagstones that I'm standing on the surface. This helps the water drain through and under the trail and not sit on top. That way we can use it more year round. And if you look in the valleys surrounding us, we can really see the importance that water played in this park and the power that water has as it moves through our ecosystems. As we look out through the valley, down through all of these maple and beech trees, we see a bench right across the hillside, and we can see exposed rock sticking out. Over tens of thousands of years, these streams have cut down through the soil and eroded the rock away to the point at where they're at today. And we're continuing to watch that geological process as the water moves through and moves tiny particles of sand, silt, and dirt, and they slowly erode away the rocks in the bottom of the stream. We're actually watching erosion happen and seeing the geological process in Settlers Cabin continue to take place today. So follow me as we head on down the trail. As we make our way almost to the waterfall, we're standing off to the side of the trail just a little bit here so you can get a good look at this area behind me. You'll probably notice there's a lot less trees and a lot of standing dead trees in this area. And that's due to a variety of reasons, but one of the big factors in tree loss in western Pennsylvania is due to the emerald ash borer, an invasive insect species that killed off nearly all of our ash trees. You can see some ash trees spread out around the ground here, as well as some other dead standing trees in this area. One thing that has done, though, has provided for some great habitat for pileated woodpeckers and other woodpecker species. If you look on this tree directly behind me, you'll see some very large holes pecked into the side of the tree. And that's from the pileated woodpecker, Pennsylvania's largest woodpecker species, tearing up the bark and looking for insects. Now, this area is under a little bit of stress because we've lost this canopy. That's allowing a lot more light than would come down into the forest floor and causing some accelerated invasive species growth. A lot of the greenery that you can see behind me is honeysuckle, privet, and multiflora rose. And those invasive species are taking over our forest in part due to the loss of the ash tree and the gaps in our forest canopy. So one improvement project that we're undertaking in Settlers Cabin Park and directly right along the waterfall trail is doing some canopy gap plantings. So we'll be coming into the park and planting trees throughout all of these areas where we are missing our canopy due to the tree loss in hopes that eventually we can regenerate that canopy. And so in coordination with that, we're also going to be coming in and removing as many of the invasive species in the planting areas that we can. So keep an eye out, and if you're in the park and you see cages all throughout the woods, those are areas where we're trying to improve the habitat and restore our natural areas. So we're going to keep moving on to our next stop, and we'll almost be at the waterfall. So we're almost at the waterfall. And If you listen closely in the background, you can start to hear the water cascading over the falls. This is really the first time we've been able to pick up the noise of the waterfall the entire way down the trail. It's nestled deep in the bottom of this valley, and we can see the ecosystem is starting to change to reflect life around a nice cool waterfall. As we look above us, and you'll notice the ground's quite shady here, we are surrounded by a beautiful grove of the eastern hemlock tree. The eastern hemlock is the state tree of Pennsylvania. It can be found all over the state in cool, shaded ravines. The hemlock is very important to these areas because its thick boughs of needles help shade our streams and keep them cool for a variety of species. Macroinvertebrates, or aquatic insects, salamanders, and our native trout species need cool waters. And without our eastern hemlocks and species that are associated with them, like rhododendron, shading those stream valleys, we really won't have appropriate temperatures for those species to thrive. One thing that's threatening the eastern hemlock in Pennsylvania is the hemlock woolly adelgid. It's an invasive aphid that has killed a lot of hemlock trees throughout the state of Pennsylvania. You can identify it by looking underneath of the hemlock branches, and attached to the needles you'll see a little white sac. Inside that sac is where the aphid lives. And because it feeds on the tree, it slowly stresses the tree out until eventually the hemlock tree succumbs to that stress. So hemlock trees are a very important part of our stream ecology in Pennsylvania, and we're doing everything that we can to try and protect them. So let's take a walk a little further, and we will finally catch our first glimpse of the waterfall. Some of the important improvements we've done to this area are to prevent erosion and help bring back our native ecosystems. You can see I'm standing next to this split rail fence that does a couple different things. It provides a great place to hang out and take a look at the first glimpse of the waterfall you get on the trail, but it's also important to help keep folks off of this very unstable hillside. For decades, people had been coming to the waterfall, and the quickest and easiest way down was just to climb down over the hillside. That's created a lot of erosion and killed a lot of the native species in this area. So as part of our ecological restoration of this site, you can see throughout this area there are a variety of tree cages where we've planted shrubs and trees to help restore what is lost, but we've also planted hundreds of small herbaceous plants throughout this area. Wildflowers like phlox are blooming now. You can see Christmas fern in here, sedges, and all different varieties of wildflowers and other small plants that are going to help restore this area. Some of the other things that we've done to help control erosion in this area is install structures like these timber staircases that lead up through our hemlock grove here. The important thing about these is this was kind of an eroded, rutted out area where people were coming through and trampling on the roots of the hemlock trees. With the few hemlock trees that we have remaining, we want to make sure that we protect them. So these stairs now protect those roots and help prevent further erosion from continuing. So take a good look at our waterfall from up here, and now we'll head down to the base of the trail and get a closer look. We finally made it down to the waterfall, and it is really a beautiful sight. The cool thing about this waterfall is the flow is pretty consistent year-round, even when it's dry out. It might be a little higher right now in the spring, but still, if you come here even in the middle of summer when it's been dry, you have a steady flow. And you can really look around and appreciate the power of water erosion in this area. You can tell that over the thousands and thousands of years, this water has slowly eaten away at this rock shelf in here, and it's continuing to do so today. So I'd like to thank you for joining us on this trip to the waterfall. Hopefully you can make it out and check it out yourself in person. I'd recommend a nice dry day for this trail because it does get a little bit muddy when it's wet. So if you come out a few days after a rain or after a nice period of dry weather, you'll have a really enjoyable experience to come out and see one of the most beautiful parts of Settlers Cabin Park. Thanks for joining us.